But it's too late now, I remember.
Because I represent science.
Now that right there is a lie.
2 days behind closed doors with Dr. Fauci. He's chairman of the COVID Origin Subcommittee. Sir, thank you for your time. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I want to go through what you learned from Dr. Fauci piece by piece. When he was asked about where the idea about 6 feet distance came from, what did he
This
say?
really pisses me off.
He said it just sort of appeared, and then they went with it. So you can see that there's not a real good process.
Because I represent science.
Bullshit!
We asked the same question about masks. He said, well, there was really no scientific data, no study behind it. We just kind of put that out there.
Because I represent science.
But you look into the origins of COVID, there were grants being distributed by NIH with taxpayer dollars to a company called EcoHealth Alliance to do research in China, gain-of-function research, and most people are familiar with that term. There's virtually no oversight over that. Dr. Fauci said, well, when they put in their request for a research grant, a board looks at it, and once they look at it, then I just sign off on it and I'm done.
Because I represent science.
Bullshit!
When they weren't doing the reporting back to NIH about what they were doing, there was no oversight coming in saying, we want your reports per se. Dr. Fauci said, well, that's not my lane. That's over in compliance.
Because I represent science.
So the process is terrible when you take a look at this. And then we asked about oversight of foreign labs. Does NIH have any oversight over the biosecurity of a foreign lab? He said, I wouldn't even know how to do that.
Because I represent science.
When you asked him about wearing masks, what was his answer as to where that came from?
Well, where it came from is basically they thought that that would be a good idea. But remember, he said it won't make a difference. And then he started mandating it. That's the problem. The mandates were a bad idea overall. But he admitted that there was no scientific data behind it.
Because I represent science.
Doesn't seem like there was any data behind any of his answers. What did he tell you about closing schools and the impact that would have on kids?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that over 100 times, even on the first day, he said he didn't recall.
Because I represent science.
Bullshit!
He does recognize now that it was a terrible impact on kids, but he didn't address that. So he shouldn't have been the spokesperson on everything that was taking place. He seemed to say, well, that's in somebody else's lane, but then why was he the one out there talking about it? Look, the teachers union wanted 6 feet. In that regard, that means they don't have to teach because there's no way you can keep your kids 6 feet apart.
Is it true that he said, I don't remember 100 times?
Just on the very first day. He said it more times on the second day.
Because I represent science.
Now that right there is a lie.
The messaging has been terrible. We need a process where America can trust our public health officials and understand they're getting the true story. Look, I said early on, even under the Trump administration, America needed to hear from the doctors treating COVID patients, not the politician and not the person in the lab, but the ones that are really have boots on the ground and are studying all this.
He told you there was no oversight on foreign facilities. Now, this is American taxpayer dollars that some people believe were going to the Wuhan lab for this quote-unquote gain-of-function research. Did he cop to that, or did he sidestep it?
He sidestepped that because he was saying when he had the interaction with Senator Paul, he said we're not doing gain-of-function research in China. Now he's saying that he has a different definition of gain-of-function research.
Blow it out your ass.
That means it definitely creates a pandemic. And no one else has that definition except now for he and Dr. Collins. And it wasn't until they were questioned on this and pushed on this that they changed the NIH website to change the definition of gain-of-function research. It sounds like that cover there.
And then you have this completely outlandish politicization of it. Politicization of everything. Politicization of the public health. Politicization of the origins. Politicization of all of it is really, I think when we look back at this, we're going to say, what were we thinking? What was going on back then?
See you in hell.
Is it true that he said, I don't remember 100 times?
Just on the very first day. He said it more times on the second day.
Bullshit! Bullshit! You're full of shit! You're full of shit!